Story 1. I cannot wait to see what you feel like inside of me. This was actually said to me at the bar by a girl I did not know who was intoxicated. Story 2. My friend went out and at the bar he had a toothbrush. He waved off a couple of questions, but then an attractive woman asked him why he had a toothbrush in his shirt pocket. Well, I wouldn't expect to use yours, he replied, and it worked. Clever guy. Story 3. Do you believe in oral sex? A girl said this to me back in high school English class. I ended up marrying her. Story 4. My friend is very confident and has good luck with the ladies. We were walking and passed a restaurant with a patio. He stopped and wanted to go back to talk to a table of girls. This was nothing new to me as he can talk to anyone, but this time he asked me to come with him. He walked straight up to the table, slammed his hands on it, and said something like, "Hey ladies, my friend over here has a knife and a dick, and one of them is going in one of you tonight." I froze. All the girls looked at me with horror, and other tables were staring as well. It felt like the music stopped and everyone was frozen looking at me. One of the girls burst out laughing. "I thought that was you walking by," she said. Apparently, he recognized one of his friends with benefits at the table. We all started laughing, and the friend with benefits introduced us. They agreed that was the worst pickup line they had ever heard, and if they didn't know us, they would have called the police on my friend. Even worse, the pickup line worked. I ended up hooking up with one of the girls a few days later. Story 5. My name is Kennedy. One time in high school, a guy said, "I hear your name is Kennedy. How is the head game, John F. Kennedy?" His friend next to him said, "I heard it was mind-blowing." Story 6. I love food, but I am a little picky with what I eat. So, tell me, what kind of Asian are you? Story 7. Years ago, when we were just friends, my wife and I worked together. One night, after sweeping, she walked up to me with something in her hand. She said, "Hey, want a screw?" While showing me a screw she had swept up. Story 8. Some 20 years ago, a contractor I was working with got hit by a girl in a club. I asked him what he had said, and his response had me laughing. "Do you want to come back to my place so I can have sex with you?" He wasn't the brightest. Story 9. A girl at the grocery store told me, "Are you a parking ticket? Because you've got fine written all over you. Just like a parking ticket. I'm probably going to ignore you until you become a real problem." Story 10. Well, I have used this with people I have talked to for a long while. "Hey, do you want to go back to my place and watch adult content on my big flat screen television?" Do not use that unless you know the person is comfortable, but if you do, that person will be ready to be picked up. Story 11. Are you a magician? Because whenever I look at you, everyone else disappears. Classic but pretty wild. Haha. Story 12. I bought a novelty-shaped pipe a while back and would ask every girl that came to our house if they wanted to try it. I lived in a party house at the time, so we were constantly having gatherings. There was a wide range of responses, but they always started laughing after I pulled the pipe out and they realized I wasn't being serious. Story 13. I will bring the chocolate and the whipped cream if you bring the cherry. A random man on the street said this as I walked past. He was most definitely speaking in metaphor. Story 14. I like your hands, but they would look even better on my neck. A woman said that to me at a gas station at 4 a.m., even though she saw my wedding band. Story 15. My sister was catcalled while she was riding in a car. Someone said, "I wish I was that seat so I could smell those farts." Story 16. Went out with a few coworkers after a particularly brutal shift, so we could commiserate and drink away the terrible day. We were having a great time, and it was a cathartic experience we all needed. At some point, a giant, remarkably drunk man who looked almost identical to Hacksaw Jim Duggan appeared in front of us, wringing his hands together and said in the meekest voice imaginable, "Sorry to interrupt, but I am the Q police and someone called to say there was a violation here." Then he just stared hopelessly in our direction, seemingly waiting for someone to get up and walk into his arms or something. Awkwardness and silence eventually turned into laughter, and he quickly vanished. Later that night, while walking out of the bathroom, the same man sucker punched me in the face. Since I was the only man in the group, I guess I got the focused wrath. Story 17. Excuse me, But do you know how much a polar bear weighs? No? Enough to break the ice. Hi, I am insert name here. If nothing else, it has done exactly what it claims, and I have had quite a few conversations from that. Story 18. My best friend and I were walking our dogs around the neighborhood. One of the neighbors was having a large house party, and we heard someone call out, "Hey, you, with the dog. I want to drink your bath water." I was 12 years old and had no clue what that was about, but it led to a discussion between my best friend and me. Why bath water? Does it make them drunk? Yeah, he seems drunk. From bath water? He seems like a zombie. Maybe that's what zombies drink after eating brains. And that's how we nicknamed the neighbor dude Zombie. Story 19. Can I kiss you softly, slowly make my way down to your belly button, and then tickle it from the inside? Story 20. By my friend while waiting in a queue for a taxi to the girl in front. You have a lovely appearance. I would love to get to know you better. Story 21. After a bit of light conversation, he said, "You know, during this whole conversation, I have been trying my very best not to use any underlying sexual innuendo, but you are making it really hard." Story 22. In college, I used to call girls by the wrong name, smile, and then walk away from them. It worked about 20% of the time. They would find me later, correct me, and that was my chance to apologize and flirt. I knew if they sought me out to correct me, they were interested. If they did not, no harm, no foul. Story 23. I am like a Nintendo. I am vintage but still entertaining, and almost any problem can be fixed by blowing on it and sticking it back in. Story 24. Are you a bowling ball? Because I would love to slip 3 fingers in you before being with you down an alley. Story 25. Motion a girl over to me with a finger. See how I made you come with 1 finger? Imagine what I could do with 2. Story 26. You are like the head cheerleader, and I am a receiver. Right now, you only have eyes on the quarterback, but I am wide open in front of you, waiting. Then I continued on that path of talking. There was a guy in the first week of college talking to a girl in the library. It was kind of funny. Everyone around could hear and kind of chuckled. Story 27. In the middle of an industrial estate, a woman walked up to me in a clear pickup attempt, smiling. The smile grew bigger when I looked at her straight away. She said, "Do you have €2 for me?" I was genuinely confused. I dismissively said no, and she was gone before I could understand what was happening. Story 28. Excuse me, miss, but what would you say to get the attention of a pretty lady? I'm not very good at this or new to it. Story 29. My friend leans toward a woman and looks at her, saying, "I can't believe anything comes out of that." Story 30. Not the craziest but the rarest one. Someone talked to me on the street. I thought it was to ask for directions, but he was speaking French, so I did not understand. When I stopped to try to give him some directions, he said something like, "Oh, I was just practicing my French with you because you were so pretty." I was so confused and just laughed at that silly pickup line. Story 31. I was once at the bar watching Monday Night Football, and this traveling Canadian woman sat next to me. My friend, the bartender, and I were the only people in the bar. She asked if I wanted to go out and have a smoke. We did. She said it was crazy we couldn't smoke in bars. I said, "I know, right? You can drown your liver and pick up herpes. What's wrong with some lung cancer? Might as well go for the hat trick. Nobody comes to the bar for their health." She laughed, and we walked back and ordered one more. When she finished, she said, "So you want to go for the hat trick?" Story 32. Him. Hi, my name is Dustin, but you can call me Dick. Her. How do you get Dick from Dustin? Him, just ask. Story 33. I used to go with a couple. In the winter. It's cold outside. Could I use your thighs as earmuffs? Want to get intimate with a large partner when they say no? Well, you are in luck. Mine is not large, with a 10% success rate. But when they like it, they laugh so hard and at least get the conversation started. I may not be a foot long, but it smells like one. This one, depending on the person, usually gets the conversation started as well. If they laugh, cool. If they look at you weird, Then it's time for the next one anyway. Story 34. I was backpacking in Australia 10 years ago. I met a girl in a bar that had a hostel in it. One of the first things she asked was if I was staying there. I said, yeah. Do you want to see? Then off we went. Story 35. Put your hands down my pants and I bet you will feel nuts. Basically, the whole song is a wild pickup line. Story 36. A girl walked up to me in a bar and said, you have to love me. I said, really? Why? She said, because another guy wants to, and I don't like him, so you will have to instead. It worked. She got me into bed. When I was new at a company, a girl in the same building was giving me a lift. After a week, I said we should discuss payment, so I told her I would pay her with intimacy. That worked. We were together several times. Story 37. If I eat you like you are a cat eating those shorts, would you love me? To be fair, that guy was homeless and probably under the influence of multiple substances. Story 38. I had a friend say this to me as a joke, but I thought, wait, that's good. It was in Irish, which I think added to the allure. For the Irish speakers first, Unvil tu gama, Marta tu ag fefint gama. Phonetics if you want to try, Unvil tu juichma, Marta tu ag fekint juichma. It means, are you well? Because you're looking well. You have to take a second between phrases to look them up and down, and a wink at the end seals the deal. Story 39. I was drunk at a birthday party at a bar and about to leave. As I walked past the pool table, there was a cute girl biting her nail. She spit it out to the side without seeing me walk by. I said, hey, I didn't think you'd be a spitter. I had no idea why she grabbed my wrist and asked me to join instead of slapping me, but I found out she most definitely was not. Story 40. When I asked my wife out for our first date, I said, do you want to get drunk and make out? We are celebrating 4 years of marriage today and 9 years together. It was simple, but it worked. Story 41. I want to be the Vesuvius to your Pompeii and erupt all over you, but I knew she was an archaeology and classical history major because we were friends already flirting towards benefits. Story 42. A girl I had known from high school and been friends with visited our hotel when we were in town for a music festival. She stayed after everyone left to go bowling, so I told her I would love to be intimate with her if she was interested, since I owed her from high school. I had been drinking rum all morning and the night before. She said yes. I have bits and pieces of what followed, but I know I followed through on my offer. Story 43. I know a man who often started his interactions by asking, are you single? I also know another man who once complimented a woman's backside, but that was at an adult convention where she was nude, so it was appropriate. Story 44. Did you fall from heaven? Because let's have sex. Drunk person at the bar who may or may not have been me. Story 45. Excuse me, miss, and I am not trying to make a pass, but you must be leaving the country if you are carrying that much luggage. Story 46. I was helping out in the emergency room one night. It had been a pretty busy shift and the normal staff was stretched thin. A man was brought in by emergency medical technicians. He had been in a head-on collision in a smart car, with both of his legs broken below the knee. Once we set and cast the bones, we informed him that he would unfortunately need to use a catheter for a while. I had the task of inserting the catheter. He was heavily medicated but still in some pain. In a cry of frustration, he yelled, "You've already got my penis in your hands. Can I at least get your number?" While I was mid-insertion, everything in the nearby rooms and station came to a halt before everyone started laughing. Story 47. Said to me by a female, "Do you know how I know we are going to have sex tonight? Because I am stronger than you." Story 48. Not exactly a pickup line and sort of a last-ditch effort to pull out of a nosedive. My friend and I were with a group of friends and started talking to a group of girls. A girl I thought I was hitting it off with said to me, "You remind me of my little brother." Before I could process my disappointment, my friend, without missing a beat, interjected and asked her, "Do you find your little brother attractive?" Story 49. I told a girl during our first conversation that she could be bored at home or drive up to my town and get food. She drove about 100 miles to see me. I couldn't believe it worked, but based on experience, I was not surprised. Dating is not as hard as some people think it is. Story 50. Do you know the difference between oral sex and a bologna sandwich? No, me neither. We should have lunch sometime. Story 51. From a biker friend at a bike rally to a girl at the bar. Can I do a white wee-wee up your front bottom? I am not joking, it worked. Story 52. Your father must be a thief. He took all the stars in the sky and put them in your eyes. According to my friend who dropped this, her reply was, he is doing 5 to 10. Story 53. Late 1970s, early 1980s. My first visit to a gay bar called The Warehouse in Nashville, Tennessee. I was having a drink at the bar in the back and watching my friends play pool when a good-looking, hairy man in his late 20s leaned over and asked me if I had any Italian heritage. I replied no, and his comeback was, do you want some? I nearly choked on my drink. Story 54. I told a girl during our first conversation that she could be bored at home or drive up to my town and get food. She drove about 100 miles to see me. I couldn't believe it worked, but based on experience, I was also not surprised. Dating is not as hard as some people think it is. Story 55. I have used the line, I have just bought some new bedding. Would you like to see it? On more than one occasion with mixed results. Story 56. I want to work with you like a part-time job. I heard a coworker say this to another coworker 10 years ago, and it worked. I died laughing. I couldn't make sense of what it really meant, but my takeaway was half-hearted and whenever I want. Story 57. Hey girl, did you hear what astronomers are saying? That there will only be 7 planets left after I destroy your anus. Story 58. I like to use. Hey girl, are you a calculus textbook? Because you look like you have a lot of problems. Story 59. I would swim through an ocean of difficulty with my mouth open just to admire the sight of your shadow. Story 60. Went to school with a tall, handsome, outgoing guy with long red hair we called Thor long before Marvels. At closing time at a bar, he yelled at a girl he had started talking to, "Are we going to have sex or what?" She was mortified. They did. Story 61. Years ago, when I was backpacking across Western Europe, I was just outside Barcelona, hiking in the foothills of Mount Tibidabo. Story 62. My uncle was very attractive to people. He was not very good-looking but was full of confidence. He would approach someone and ask, "Do you want to have sex?" He was successful at least 50% of the time. Story 63. Many years ago, my friend and I, both under the age of 18 or 19, went into the small bar area of a Chinese restaurant that never asked for our identification. A group of young women from a bachelorette party were seated at the bar, and my friend grabbed the stool right next to them. After about 10 minutes, he turned to the closest one and said, "Hey, if you're not going to buy me a drink, will you move so someone else can?" Later, they left together. Story 64. I was working security at a nightclub. A woman told my coworker to tell me that the train is in the station and I need to get on board and ride. I took the bus home. Story 65. Fishing at a jetty when a party boat pulled up and everyone was getting off. A man walked up to a girl, and before he said anything, she just said, "No." He replied, "Well, you might as well come home with me. You're obviously not going home with anyone else because they have all left." She sighed and said, "Okay," and they left together. Story 66. When I was in my early 20s in the mid-1990s, I was in line at a club to use the restroom. As I approached, I saw a man standing outside the women's restroom asking every woman who exited if they wanted to have sex. The man was yelled at and slapped by several women. However, one woman accepted his offer, and they left together. Story 67. These were not intended as pickup lines, but the strangest things I've said that ended up functioning as such. "You are both the biggest bitches. And no way you don't drink that." In reference to a classy-looking girl ordering a poor-quality drink. I'm not into negative behavior or any of that type of attitude, but sometimes someone likes a challenge or confrontation, and it works out. Honestly, angrily calling a couple of girls bitches turning into a positive was a surprising outcome. Story 68. My friend started hitting on a girl at the bar and told her, "The only thing I can think about is how long I am going to last with my private part in your mouth." She grabbed his hand, took him to his car, and performed oral sex on him. That line is either going to end like that or with a slap in the face. Story 69. Cannot remember where I heard this. That outfit looks very becoming on you. If I were you, I would be coming too. Story 70. It's not really a pickup line, but I giggle when I think about two of my friends in high school. Girlfriend, you know you're cute, right? Boyfriend, what? No, I'm not. I'm manly and tough. Girlfriend, yes, and that makes you cute. Boyfriend, well, if that's how we're defining cute and manly, then you're the bulliest lumberjack I have ever seen. Together now for 12 years and just had their second child. I am so happy for them. They really are a perfect couple. Story 71. My friend leaned out of a second-story window at 8 a.m. and shouted at a girl across the street, "Hey, do you want to hang out or what?" She did. Story 72. Do traffic in human organs? Because you stole my heart. Women will laugh so much they fall in love. Try it. Story 73. Met a woman in a bar, and after some conversation, she told me she was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I asked what she was doing in a bar. She said, "Just because I don't smoke or drink, it doesn't mean that I like to sleep alone." Story 74. Hey baby, let's go back to my place and do a little math. Add a bed, subtract your clothes, divide your legs, and multiply. Story 75. Do you know what the most attractive thing about a pregnant woman is? They cannot get pregnant. This was actually said to me outside an arcade when I was 7 months pregnant. Story 76. A drunk friend of mine went up to a very large woman at the bar and said, "You look like you like donuts. Have you ever tried to smile like one?" Then he said, "Yeah, I can work with that." When she made the face to see what he meant, it actually worked, which was the surprising part because he literally just called her overweight as part of his pickup line. Story 77. One girl saw me at the bar and said, "Buy me a drink." In a nice voice. We got married a year later. Don't laugh. She did try to control me but failed because I am very understanding. I have 2 wonderful sons and many grandchildren. So what's not to like? She passed away 2 years ago. We were divorced, but I have no regrets and plenty of good memories. Story 78. You will sleep with me tonight. When, very early in the evening on a business outing in London, repeated multiple times for emphasis. Who said it? A German man who was one of our distributors. Story 79. Way back, a group of friends were hanging out in a bar when one of them decided to approach a table full of girls. He confidently walked over, slammed his hands on the table, looked at them and said, "Okay, which one of you wants me now?" They all looked at him as if he had 7 heads. Then one of them said, "None of us." To which my friend nodded and said, "Duly noted," before walking away. It was really funny. The 1990s were wild. Story 80. Excuse me for interrupting, and I do not mean to make a pass, but you must be leaving the country if you are carrying that much luggage. Story 81. I read all these, so I made sure I was not repeating. Also, you people need some class. Number 1, hey, you work at Little Chasers. It does not matter because I am hot and ready. Number 2, girl, are you a washing machine? I want to put all my dirty loads in you. Story 82. My watch can see you naked. How? She replied. I've set it 1 hour ahead. Now I'm in prison. Haha. Story 83. I'm just going to say it. I want to perform oral sex on you. I said this during the last call to a girl I had been talking to at the bar. If it weren't for my roommate being there to actually hear it, no one would ever believe that it worked. Story 84. My older brother used to go up to girls and say, "Fat penguin," to their face. As soon as they started to react, he would say, "Sorry, I just wanted to break the ice." Story 85. My high school friend used to say, "I was going to ask you over for pizza and sex, but we're all out of pizza." It didn't work much for him, but he did end up dating a girl with large breasts for most of senior year. Story 86. If I were a squirrel and you were a tree, Would you let me bust a nut in your trunk? That is one of the most surprising and shocking things I have ever been told. Story 87. I hear you like wine gums. Well, wind your gums around this. For, do you have any Irish on you? Would you like some? For, do you want to go have on a beer? Story 88. I was on a Greyhound bus heading to an unknown destination when a brunette decided to sit in the seat behind me. She was alone in the last row with 3 seats. I had planned to take that seat, but she got there first. As time passed, I could hear her singing with a beautiful meadowlark-like voice. My shaft grew so hard and throbbed that it was cutting off blood circulation to the rest of my body as I fantasized about being inside her. I couldn't take it any longer, so I finally turned around, feeling blunt and realizing how ignorant I had been. I told her my member was so hard because of her that I felt weak everywhere else. Show me, was her reply. Bam! We made love 3 different times during the night while the bus carried us to nowhere. The only sound was the slapping of skin as I penetrated deeper with every thrust, pumping as if there were no tomorrow. We parted the next morning in a city I couldn't remember, after a night that would replay in my mind as I traveled across the Americas looking for work and enjoyment. Story 89. Got drunk at the local bar and made eye contact with a very attractive woman for an hour. Last call came, and I got into my car to go to Perkins and sleep it off in the back of their parking lot. She and her friends came out, so I rolled down my window and asked if she wanted to have sex. She said sure, but if I was no good, she would call the police and say I assaulted her. Smart woman, she could handle herself very well. Drunk me said get in, we went and had sex multiple times. It was now 5 a.m. Best part. She said, would you mind leaving? I like to sleep alone. Goodbye. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.